Welcome back to Respoiled. Today, I have another captivating story to share with you. But before we dive in, if you're new here, I invite you to subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications, so you'll never miss out on all of my latest uploads. Now let's get started. In 60 AD, the Roman Empire dominates much of Europe, yet Britannia remains unconquered, resisting Roman rule. On the Isle of Mona, the Roman army arrives to exterminate 300 Druids, ruthlessly ending their lives one by one. Despite facing imminent death, the Druids maintain unwavering faith in their mythical warrior goddess, hoping for her eventual deliverance from Roman oppression as they perish, kneeling in prayer. In Rome, Commander Paulinus briefs King Nero on the recent massacre, mentioning the Druids' belief in a warrior goddess. Nero concurs that the Druids must not be allowed to have hope of a savior, thus decreeing a ban on women holding positions of authority. Meanwhile, in Britannia, the Iceni tribe enjoys tranquility under the rule of King Prasutagus and his queen, proud parents of 2 daughters. Warrior Ciaran informs Prasutagus of the arrival of Rome's new procurator, Cattus, who harbors disdain for Britannia. While the men engage in political discussions, the queen takes her daughters to language classes and a beauty session. After beautifying themselves, they head to the market, only to be unsettled by the sight of men crucified. Initially, the queen dismisses the significance, assuming the crucified men are criminals receiving their due punishment, but her maid corrects her: those men are Christians executed by Rome for their faith. Undeterred, the queen proceeds to the market with her daughters. While browsing, they spot a group of Trinovant warriors enjoying a drink. Suddenly, Cartaminda recognizes the queen and reverently addresses her as Boudica, the warrior goddess. Upon hearing this, the other warriors also kneel, but a stall owner overhears the maid explaining the legend to the girls and protests in the name of Rome. The man attempts to seize the queen and deliver her to the Roman guards, but Cartaminda swiftly cuts his hand and then beheads him. Subsequently, everyone flees before the Roman guards arrive. Later, Prasutagus explains that he had to negotiate with the centurions to establish his wife's innocence. For about a year, the queen is prohibited from returning to the market. She must send a servant for anything she needs. Curious about why the Trinovant warriors revered her as their goddess, the queen asks Prasutagus, who speculates it's due to her barbarian heritage. In the afternoon, the queen engages in swordplay with the girls, although it's evident that none of them have received formal training. Prasutagus soon joins them as Ciaran announces his departure, and the queen observes his persistent somber demeanor since losing his family in the war. She then playfully taunts her husband with the wooden sword, prompting Prasutagus to realize the strength of her barbarian heritage. Recognizing that the queen cannot deny her origins, Prasutagus decides to bestow upon her the dowry her father gave him upon their marriage, the Boudica sword. Forged with forgotten magic and safeguarded for centuries by the Druids, its color shifts with the dancing flames. The following day, Procurator Cattus pays a visit to the Iceni tribe, compelling Prasutagus to reluctantly kiss his ring. They share a pleasant meal, with the locals feigning honor at Cattus' presence, though his passive-aggressive remarks about their culture and his coveting of their fort make them visibly uneasy. Prasutagus then instructs his men to behave impeccably, cautioning that Cattus could punish even minor infractions by destroying the village. To subtly deter Cattus from settling in the area, Prasutagus orders Ciaran to gather a group of bandits and troublemakers to present as tribute, highlighting the perilous nature of the lands. While Ciaran complies with his king's command, he harbors reservations about the plan. Sometime later, Prasutagus and his men depart to apprehend the bandits for tribute. Upon their return after a few days, Ciaran delivers distressing news to the queen: Prasutagus perished in battle during an ambush by the bandits. Overwhelmed with grief, the queen dismisses the men, reproaching them for failing to protect their king. The following day, with no male heirs, the Iceni tribe proclaims her as their new queen leader and presents her with the royal torque symbolizing her authority. Ciaran appears discontent with this development. However, the ceremony is abruptly interrupted by Cattus and his soldiers, who assert that the Roman Empire does not recognize women in positions of power and interprets the previously sent tribute as a bribe. Due to these offenses, Cattus seizes all of her land, condemning her and her daughters to punishment. Additionally, he discloses that it was Ciaran who disclosed Prasutagus' whereabouts, enabling his soldiers to ambush him. The soldiers promptly seize the queen from her daughters, strip her of her torque, and forcibly disrobe her before suspending her from a tree, subjecting her to lashes. As the queen endures the relentless blows, the tribe can only observe, as those who attempt to protest are subdued by the soldiers. Following the ordeal, her face is branded with Nero's initials, a punishment typically reserved for slaves. Come evening, Cartaminda and the Trinovant warriors infiltrate the Roman encampment, discreetly eliminating several guards until they locate the queen's whereabouts and liberate her. They quietly navigate the river, reaching the Trinovan tribe unnoticed, where they tend to the queen's injuries. While she recuperates, she battles a fever and repeatedly inquires about her daughters, prompting Cartaminda to inform her that the Trinovan tribe is now her family. Despite her reluctance, the queen is relieved when her daughters enter the tent and reunite with her. Cartaminda presents her with a set of false teeth pilfered from a centurion, asserting that a warrior must have the ability to bite. As she gradually recovers in the following days, the queen emerges from the tent to find her daughters being trained in combat by the warriors. She requests a pause for some quality time together and discovers that Cartaminda had children once, but they were slain by the Romans. The girls further elucidate that, in the Trinovan tribe's view, the mark inflicted by Catus designates her as their leader, and it is her responsibility to unite the tribes against the Romans. They emphasize that she has no alternative. Subsequently, the queen opts to practice with a training dummy, but her movements lack finesse. Fortunately, a warrior joins her, offering guidance on proper striking techniques. Their training session is interrupted by Cartaminda, who presents her with the Boudica sword. Evidently, Catus had bestowed it upon one of his soldiers, and Cartaminda dispatched the soldier to reclaim it. The queen is deeply moved by the gesture, though her trainer remarks that bronze is not an ideal metal for a sword. Suddenly, Wulfgar and his tribe arrive to meet the queen. Wulfgar is unimpressed by her lack of experience and proper armor, asserting that he should lead instead. He proceeds to ridicule her sword, breaking it in two and tossing it into the river. The queen hurriedly dives into the water to retrieve the sword, causing concern among the warriors due to the strong currents capable of drowning someone. However, the queen returns and reveals that the sword magically repaired itself, impressing everyone and prompting them to kneel as Wulfgar declares his support for her and her cause. With her sword raised high, the queen finally embraces the name Boudica. Later that evening, the warriors recover the royal torque and perform a ceremony officially welcoming Boudica as the new queen of the United Tribes. In a heartfelt speech about reclaiming their freedom, she proposes ambushing Cartus' convoy in 2 days. Although Wulfgar is skeptical due to Cartus' formidable army, Boudica makes her sword float back to her hand before departing, which the onlookers interpret as another auspicious sign. While Boudica waits in the forest prepared to fight alone, Wulfgar arrives with his men, pledging to assist her in battle while chanting her name. 2 days later, the convoy, led by Ciaran who has joined the Roman army, travels through the forest. Encountering Boudica alone on the road, she demands to parley with Cartus. Initially reluctant, Ciaran yields to her demands under threat of violence and seeks out his superior. When Cartus arrives and fails to recognize Boudica, she seizes the opportunity to assert her authority as the queen of the land before swiftly dispatching Cartus with her sword. With the tribe's warriors emerging from hiding, they encircle the Romans in a highly successful ambush. Fierce battles erupt throughout the area as the Romans defend themselves or attempt to flee, but Boudica's men prove relentless, eliminating every enemy they encounter. Despite occasionally losing footing or her sword, Boudica persists unwaveringly until every Roman is vanquished, their heads displayed on spikes. Following the carnage, the tribesmen loot gold and any useful items from the fallen. Discovering Ciaran attempting to escape, 2 warriors apprehend him and present him to Boudica, whose rage leads her to repeatedly stab him for his betrayal. Wulfgar intervenes to restrain Boudica before she succumbs to madness, and she declares they will journey to Camulos. Though Wulfgar agrees, he suggests seeking approval from the Druid Council first. In the evening, the Druids grant their blessing by having Boudica and Wulfgar drink from Catus' skull, following tradition. Once the ritual is complete, Wulfgar attempts to flirt with Boudica, despite being married to 2 other women, but she declines, as she still sees herself as King Prasutagus' wife. Left alone, Boudica is approached by another druid who discusses the meaning of life with her. The druid reveals that Boudica's daughters have passed away, a truth she struggles to accept. Boudica reflects on cherished family memories while the druid explains that her daughter's spirits will forever remain with her, and that her own death is imminent, but she must first lead her army once more. Distressed by these revelations, Boudica seeks Wulfgar's reassurance regarding her daughters, only to learn they exist solely in her imagination, leading to a breakdown and loss of consciousness. Upon awakening in a bed, Boudica perceives her daughter's spirits at her side, recognizing their illusion but finding solace in their presence and promising a future reunion. Several days later, Boudica and her army reach Camulos, a town occupied by Romans who slaughtered the locals, transforming it into a retirement settlement for veteran soldiers. Boudica's group easily overwhelms the town, swiftly dispatching the aged Romans in a brutal massacre that includes decapitations. The skirmish concludes rapidly, followed by a thorough looting of valuables before setting the settlement ablaze, with Boudica declaring their mission has only just begun. As they establish camp, Boudica observes the warriors engaging in an unusual celebration. Wulfgar clarifies they are marking their cheeks with the same symbol as hers, intending it as a tribute, but Boudica is dismayed, interpreting the symbol as synonymous with enslavement. However, Wulfgar notes that they cannot read, so they are imbuing the symbol with a new significance. Upon reaching Cambridge Forest, they ambush another Roman convoy, mercilessly slaying dozens of soldiers. With each skirmish, Boudica's army becomes more coordinated yet increasingly ferocious, leaving a trail of decapitated heads in their wake. Upon reaching London, they mount a nocturnal assault on the harbor, setting ablaze the enemy's ships. Despite the Roman soldiers' efforts to defend, they prove powerless against the enraged tribesmen, much to Boudica's satisfaction as she personally beheads their captain. Meanwhile, in Rome, riots grip the city, with buildings engulfed in flames. Dissatisfied with the costly war, the populace clamors for a decisive victory. Paulinus attempts to rescue Nero, who clarifies that he's a musician, not a warrior. Feeling abandoned by Rome, Nero chooses to self-delete. Witnessing his king's demise, Paulinus vows to secure the victory Rome requires and informs his troops they'll depart by morning. News of Nero's death and Paulinus' impending departure reaches Britannia, sparking concern among the tribesmen, as the king's army surpasses ordinary guards in strength. Wulfgar advises Boudica that the tribesmen must recuperate, mindful of the impending winter. Engaging in battle now would lead to certain death, so he advocates for a return in spring with reinforcements from the north. Boudica insists on seeing the mission through, refusing to send her men home. Her daughter's spirits suggest Wulfgar may be upset over her rejection, but Boudica stands firm in her decision not to compromise her values. Unable to reconcile, Wulfgar departs with his men, leaving Boudica with only the Trinovan tribe. The following morning, the tribe prepares for battle upon learning that Paulinus is en route to Watling Street to confront her. Eager to meet him, Boudica delivers an inspiring speech to her tribe, pledging to reclaim their freedom as she kisses the land. As they advance towards the road to initiate their attack, they are stunned to find the soldiers stepping aside to allow them passage. Paulinus, a seasoned strategist, orchestrates a meticulous ambush, unleashing a barrage of arrows that decimate the tribesmen. Witnessing the devastation, Boudica commands her men to overturn her carriage for cover, but the onslaught persists, claiming more lives. Desperate, Boudica appeals to her daughters for aid, but they gently remind her that her time has come to join them. Refusing to meet her end passively, Boudica rallies with Cardamanda's encouragement, issuing orders for a defiant stand. As they prepare to face their fate head-on, cries echo from the forest, revealing Wulfgar's return with reinforcements. Seizing the element of surprise, they unleash a counterattack, using Roman weapons against them. Despite Romans falling left and right, their overwhelming numbers prevail, leading to the deaths of both Wulfgar and Cardamanda in battle. Witnessing their fall, Boudica is consumed by fury, retaliating fiercely against the Romans. However, her daughters gently remind her of her destiny to join them. Distracted by their ethereal presence, Boudica is struck by an arrow, allowing the Romans to encircle and fatally wound her with numerous stabs. In her final moments, thoughts of her family flood her mind as her soul transcends to reunite with them in the afterlife. Today, a statue commemorating Boudica and her daughters stands in London. Don't forget to like, subscribe and enable notifications for more content like this. Thank you for watching.